oftentimes we are told, you know, like many people just can't handle it. Let's just be honest. We can't be the same way with everybody that we are with certain folks. So there is a totality of a man, and not everybody is set up or equipped to handle the totality of a man. And so I want to go into that's what we talked about on last week, but I want us to go into this now and talk about um, a man's world, a man's world. And I want to give, especially those non-men, and I know I keep saying that, but I mean that in the sweetest and nicest ways possible. But I want to give the non-men a glimpse into what it means to be a man, right? What a man's world looks like. A man's world is one that is constantly full of pressure, pressure, pressure. You say, well, what do you mean, brother preacher? What do you mean, brother Chavis, that a man's world is constantly full of pressure? I'm so very glad you asked. When you begin to look at a man's world, right? A man's world. This is a man's world, right? Y'all know that. But in a man's world, it is constantly full of pressure. And I'm not saying, and I'm not minimizing or overlooking the pressure that women deal with, but there is a special pressure that men deal with. And I want you to get a glimpse of it, because I want you to understand why your man, when he comes home from work, or when he comes home from wherever he's been, or whatever it is that he does, that oftentimes he may not speak to you directly and right away. I want you to understand why it is that when a man, after a long hard day, he either just wants to sit back and watch the TV and just sort of veg out for a bit. And I know that you say it's not healthy. I know that you say it's not good. But this is what a man has been trained and taught that he should do. One, because not everybody can handle the totality of a man. And I'm going to deal more. Let me say this. I'm going to deal with this more in one of our later segments, or one of our later months, where I want to talk about the contrast of a man. The contrast of a man. And you say, what do you mean? The contrast of a man, where he has to be as light, as gentle, as soft as a feather, but he has to be as hard and as abrasive and as rough and as tough as a hammer and or a rock. Like I'm gonna deal with that on another day. But today, let's look at a man's world. A man's world is full of pressure. You say pressure. Yes, yes, pressure. Because in every place, in every aspect, in everything that a man does, there is pressure on him. Pressure for him to perform. Pressure for him to provide. Pressure for him to be this or to do that. And everywhere that a man turns, there's pressure. Let me help you understand. Again, there's pressure on him to provide a living for his family. There's pressure on him to be able to provide for his household. And it doesn't matter if the wife is working or if she isn't working. When the bills aren't paid, when there's not food on the table, then he feels like a failure, because the pressure and the weight was never fully on the woman. Yes, they're partners. Yes, they're equals. Yes, I get all that. But it is the man's goal, responsibility, to provide a home, a place that his family can feel safe and loved and cared for. And there is constant pressure even in that, because there's pressure on him to make sure that they're loved. There's pressure on him to make sure that they're taken care of, that their needs. See, there is constant pressure. Then he goes to the job, right? And at the job, there is constant pressure on the man to make sure that he gets his job done. Excuse me. That he has all his work done. And so there is constant pressure. If you've never realized or known this about a man, if you've never understood why it is that a man, or your man in particular, why the men around you, the men in your life, they don't talk much about what's going on, it's because they're constantly under pressure. And I shared with you last week that not many men have a safe place where they can relieve or release this pressure. So oftentimes what a man will do is he'll sit there and he'll watch a TV. He may drink his favorite beverage or whatever the beverage of his choice is, right? And he will relieve some pressure just by sitting and watching the television, because what watching the television and watching movies and watching this does is it allows him to get out of his own head. It allows him to escape from the things that have been bubbling up and boiling up. It doesn't mean that they're not there, but it just temporarily gives him some relief. It's kind of like when you take a kettle, right? And you put some water in that kettle, and then you put some some heat underneath that kettle. What begins to happen is that the pressure in there begins to build up, and the more and more it just begins to whistle and whistle until either A, it releases all of the pressure that's in there, or if there's no way for it to release the pressure, what happens? It explodes. That's what men deal with. That's what men go through. That's the constant pressure that men are under. And I haven't even hit the full tip of the iceberg, because as a man, if he has his mother in his life, if he has any sort of relationship with his mother, right? And sometimes even if he doesn't, there's pressure from outside sources that say, oh, you need to have a good relationship with your mom. And see, the pressure, there's so much pressure that men deal with. And for the ladies who are raising sons, and you wonder why your sons go and they are trying to relieve pressure. And can I just be honest? The reason why some of these men are constantly chasing women, the reason why men or these boys are constantly going from one girl to the next, is because the only way that some men know how to relieve the pressure that's in a man's world is through sex. Because in that moment, nothing else matters. In that moment, she thinks I'm just as great and as good and as whatever as I can be, because and I don't have to worry, because at least I'm under a little less pressure. Now, there's still pressure to perform in that moment, but most boys, most men, rather, let me say most men have been perfecting or working at that since they were boys. So they feel as though at least I can perform here. And even if I don't, at least I can take care of me, right? It's about pressure. You want to know what a man's world is, what a man's world looks like? It's constant pressure, all right? There's even just pressure to be a man. That's part of the pressure that a man is under. And I'm running low on time, because I said we'd, take about 15 minutes, but I've got maybe about 4 or 5 minutes left, right? But next week, what we'll talk about, we're going to take this a step further, and I'm not quite done yet with this week. But see, we have pressure to just be a man, because oftentimes what we've been told, what we've heard from adolescence, right? What we've heard from even being a toddler, we've heard, just be a man up, right? Just man up. Uh, don't, stop crying, man up. Don't, no, man up. Just be a man, And so there is constant pressure for that man. And you wonder, right? You wonder why. Again, these men are dying early. It's because many men, let me just be honest, this is why men have more heart issues. And let me say this. I have to clarify this. This is my opinions, right? Right. This portion right here is my opinion. This is my thoughts, my feelings on it. This is why many men don't outlive the woman in their lives, right? Is because they are under constant pressure. in some way, form, or another. And from years and years and generations, we have not sought a place. We have not even had a place where we could adequately relieve that pressure. One of the things that I've found that helps to relieve that is having safe places. And I'm going to keep iterating that every week if I can, that safe places where we can just relieve some of the pressure. You know, my dad, Mr. Charles Ashton, right? That's my biological father. My dad, he and I have been over the past few years building up our relationship, and he is one of those places and spaces where I can go and I can just share some of my thoughts with him, some of my feelings, my emotions that I don't want to or don't feel like I could share with my wife without any sort of backlash or consequence or her taking it maybe the wrong way. And my dad, like I said, he's also an alpha, right? And one of the things that the alphas say, right? They have this saying that he's not heavy, he's my brother, right? He's not heavy, he's my brother. And we as men, not just I don't I don't care nothing about the alphas or any other fraternity or nothing like that, right? As men, we have to adopt that motto. When you see another man and you see him struggling, you see that he's under a lot of pressure. And men, we know what that pressure looks like because we see it in ourselves. You know what it looks like when a man ain't talking, when a man and he just laugh through pain and hurt, right? You know what that I know what that looks like, and so oftentimes when I see a man, I begin to pray for him if I can understand and begin to see that he's under pressure. So I want to encourage us as men, all right? I want to encourage us as men that we've got to begin to when we see other men know that he's not heavy. I know he's under a lot of pressure. I know you're under a lot of pressure. But can I tell you that oftentimes we can help each other relieve that pressure if we would just talk to one another? Like I said, I thank God for my dad because my dad has been a tremendous help when I needed to relieve some pressure. I just call him up and I say, Dad, I'm on my way over. you know, we sit out in the garage. We will drink some root beers or, whatever he's got in the fridge. If it ain't nothing but a Gatorade, or if it's I don't drink regular Cokes, right? I don't necessarily like the way that regular Cokes taste, but every now and then he'll get the cherry vanilla Coke or just the vanilla Coke. I can drink that because I like the way those taste. I just can't stand the regular Coke. Whatever he's got in the refrigerator, right? It may even be a Sprite, something of that. We'll just sit out in the garage, or we'll go sit out under the or where he used to have a pergola, or whatever, and we just talk as men. We just talk about whatever's going on. He shares with me some things that he's experienced and been through in his life and how he's handled it. And these past few years has really helped me to even understand and know myself better as a man and help me deal with pressure better because now I understand why I handle situations the way I do because I've gotten to know my father. I didn't grow up with him in my life, but now I understand. And many men, their father is not present in their life. And I said I would deal with it this week, but it looks like I'm gonna have to put it off for another week. And next week will be the perfect week as we talk about just be a man about it. But I have learned through getting to know my dad why I am the way that I am, why I handle things the way that I handle them. And I know that many men no longer have their father in their life, but I said it on last week, without any clear, distinct ritual or thing or whatever that happens to let us know when we've transitioned from boyhood to manhood, without a clear example of men and man in our life, and especially a man that we came from, we often don't understand why we are the way we are and why we do things the way we do them. And that's why it's good for, I believe, for young boys to be around some grown men so they can get a picture of what it really means to be a man. That's why I think young boys, I'm closing this thing out, but I've got little Timothy in my life. Y'all have heard me talk about Timothy on this show. Timothy is 7 now, right? Yeah, he's 7 now, and Timothy calls me one of his, or calls me his hero. And although Timothy is not, he's not my son or he's not biologically related to me, Timothy knows that I love him. I love him. I love him. And that I will be there for him and show him what it means and what it is to be a man because I've been doing it since day one. Or he was a few weeks old by the time I got to him, right? So I want to show you all. I want to show you all. I want to encourage you all, rather. It's a man. His world is full of pressure. This man that you know, this man that you see every day, this man that his world is full of pressure. And why not help him relieve some of that pressure? And I'm not saying, like I said, and again, I know I got ladies listening. I'm not saying go have sex with no man. I'm not encouraging that. No, what I'm encouraging you is be a safe place without any judgment, without any guilt, without any nagging or anything like that. Be a place where a man can just say, "All right, this is a safe place for me. I can talk here." And it's not about a relationship. It's not about, no, no. It's just she cares about me and wants me to be better. And then men, we've got to know how to do that for men as well. Men need safe places where we can just un, I mean, unload all that we deal with in a man's world. All right. All right, friends. I know that's may not be what you wanted to hear or how you wanted to hear it, but that's what I've got for us on today. This has been a man's world. Join me next week during this same segment because during this segment we will pick up um, with the totality of a man, and we're going to deal with the topic of just be a man about it. All right, just be a man about it. So that's what we'll deal with right here next week on the I Am Encouraged radio show. Now, here is Keela Richardson with Prayer Will Change Things right here on the I Am Encouraged radio show.